Hi everyone, this is Aaron and today I'm going to teach you how to play Danish Tarok. This is actually a form of an older game called Grosstarock, which used to be played all through Germanic Europe, so even it was played in France, through Germany up into Scandinavia, but these days has almost entirely died out and is only now still played in Denmark by only a few hundred people in various Tarot clubs up there. They just call it Tarok, but in English, because it's mainly these days played in Denmark, we tend to call it Danish Tarok. Now, you need a 78 card tarot deck, like for example this one, the same deck you would play French tarot with. And without saying much more about it, let's just jump in and see what a game looks like. Okay, so this is a 3-player game, and you'll notice that we are playing on boardgamearena.com. I'm at the bottom, that's me, Chicken Duck. My fellow players are Lulu up in the top right corner and Mysterious in the top left corner. That's Michael, who actually developed this game for Board Game Arena. He's a massive tarot game fan. I might interview him later in another episode. So far it looks like a pretty normal trick-taking game. Someone leads to a trick, the others have to follow suit. Now, I just led the 1 of diamonds, Lulu played the 2 of diamonds, Mysterious played the 8, and lo and behold, I won the trick. This is a traditional tarot game, which means that the red suits are actually backwards, in that the pips go from 1 is highest and 10 is lowest. The black suits are normal, 1 is lowest and 10 is highest, but the red ones are backwards. So far everyone is just following suit. I don't have any hearts, therefore I have to play a trump. Lulu played a higher trump than me, so Lulu won that trick. Now we're just going to skip forward a little bit. Let's show you something interesting that happened here. Later on, this trick here, this doesn't look good. I could be in a bit of trouble here. I lead a trump, and I had the highest trump there. So do I lead the king? I did. I led the king, and then Michael is going to take the king from me with the pagat, with the 1 of trumps, and then he wins that last trick. Now, if you were watching us playing at a physical table, there would have been a lot of excitement just then as to who exactly was going to win the last trick. In this game, the most important thing to do is win the last trick of the hand, and preferably with either a king or the pagat, the 1 of trumps. So Michael and I actually did a few things that you wouldn't normally do in a game. We both probably should have tried to win the last trick with our Ultimos. I should have tried and held on to that king for the last one, would have just been polite. Michael should have tried to hold on and win with the pagat, which he would have done. But both of us had lost track of taroks because we hadn't been counting the taroks because we'd actually been teaching Lulu to play in this game. Anyway, let's leave that aside. Basically, when you start a new hand, you have a 78 card deck, and then you deal, the dealer deals in sets of 5 to each player until you have 25 each, and then the dealer keeps the last 3 and actually gets to pick 3 cards from the hand to throw out into something called the skat. As you can imagine, that means that in Danish Tarok you have a massive handful of cards. You start out with 25 cards in your hand. In addition to your deck of cards, you're also going to need something to score with. Now, in this game, you could score with pen and paper, but it's a lot easier to score with tokens. This is a game where most of the scoring is done by the players pushing poker chips or tokens or something like that back and forth across the table to each other when they win or penalize each other for various things that happen during the game. You could do it with Monopoly money if you can't find tokens. If you've got poker chips, that's great. These are the kind of tokens that the guys in Denmark use these days. The different shapes are different values, so maybe the different shapes are 5, 20 and 50 points, and then each player will start with a particular colour just so you can keep track of who's had to pay in how much and so on. But you just count up how many tokens you've got at the end. It doesn't actually matter if you don't have the different colours. Final piece of equipment you're going to need is 2 cups, one marked with a crown, this is the king cup, one marked with the number 1, this is the pagat cup. At the start of the game, each player antes up 20 points into each of the cups, the king cup and the pagat cup, and then each round the dealer also pays an extra 5 points into each of the cups. I'm dealer of this round, so you can see those 2 cups are next to me. Now, I'm the dealer, which means I got an extra 3 cards, which I have to discard. They become the skat, which will count towards my points later on. Before you start the first trick, there is a round of mandatory declarations where you will score some points from your opponents depending what is in your hand. The first declaration is if you have 10 or more trumps, and you also have to say whether or not you have the pagat, and the other 2 will pay you 10 points each. Every trump you have in addition to that is worth 5 points more. So in this hand here, you actually have 11 trumps, including the full, avec, meaning with the pagat. So both of your opponents would owe you 15 points that they'll push across the table straight away. The next declaration that you might have to make is holding the 3 Matadors, which is the pagat, the 1 of trumps, the mondo, the 21 of trumps, and the fool, like the Trill cards in other Tarok games. So basically, if you have all 3 of them, you have 3 Matadors. If you also have the 20, you have 4 Matadors. If you have the 19, you have 5 Matadors, and so on. Holding 3 is worth 10 points, and then each additional one is worth another 5 points. So looking at this hand, I have got the 1, the pagat, the 21, the fool, the 19, and the 20. That's 5 Matadors. My opponents owe me 20 points each for those. The next compulsory declaration depends on how many kings you have, and for these the fool is a wild card. You can have half kings, which means you have 3 of the kings plus the fool. You can have full kings, meaning you have all 4 of them, and you can have abundant kings when you have all 4 of them and the fool. Half kings is worth 5 points, full kings is worth 10 points, and abundant kings is worth 15 points, which you will be paid by each of your opponents. Looking at this hand here, you have got full kings. You've got the king of clubs, king of hearts, king of spades, king of diamonds. So you've got full kings. You don't have the fool, so it's not abundant. The final declaration is called Cavalry, which just means that you've got all of the court cards, the royal court, in one suit. For example, half cavalry, you might have 3 court cards and the fool. Full cavalry, you would have all 4 court cards. Abundant cavalry is 4 court cards and the fool. Half cavalry is worth 5 points, full cavalry is worth 10 points, and abundant cavalry is worth 15 points. Now, in both the cavalry and the king's ones, if you've got half, you have to say which one you're missing. So you might say half cavalry in clubs, missing the queen or something. In this sample hand, you've got full cavalry in clubs. You've got all 4 of them. In this sample hand, though, you actually have a half cavalry in clubs because you're missing the queen, and you've also got half kings missing the king of hearts. So you would announce those, and it just scrolled past how many points all your opponents owe you. It may seem weird that your opponents are basically paying you for you having a strong hand, but if you think about it in terms of they're paying you for the information, because if you've got a strong hand, usually what happens is the other 2 are going to team up against you, and so it's a bit of compensation for that. Anyway, enough talk. Let's actually get down to playing the game. You might notice I left the chat in down there. There might be a few Easter eggs there that Michael and I were discussing. Lulu leads the Queen of Hearts. We both just have pips, so Lulu wins that trick. Lulu leads the 2 of clubs. Michael plays the King of Clubs. Obviously, he's not confident to want to keep it right to the end to try and win an Ultimo with it, so he's brought it home safely now. Oh, I could take that trick with one of these 2. So I play the 6 of hearts. So far I'm winning because the 6 beats the 7 in the red suits. That's my trick. I'm going to lead the 10 of diamonds. That is the lowest diamond. That is not going to win a trick. Waiting and see what happens there. Ah yes, Lulu is discussing exactly why the 6 of hearts won the previous one. Anyway, let's skip forward a little bit further, and something interesting happens here. Now, I'm in the unfortunate position, Lulu leads spades. The only spades I have is the king. I have to follow suit, and Michael did not have spades. He played a trump. I have lost a king. This is bad. Anytime you play a king to a trick and it does not win the trick, you have to pay 5 points to each opponent and 5 into the king pot as a penalty. Anyway, back to the game. I only have trumps left. So I think there's a good chance that I can manage to get myself to the last trick, leading out the trumps, basically just trying to weed out all the other guys' ones. Wait, now Michael played the fool. Now the good thing with the fool, also called the skis in Danish, is that the fool excuses you from following suit. You can use it to save a king or to save a high trump that you don't want to spend. Now Lulu has played the 20 and Michael plays the pagat. He has lost the pagat. Now the same as losing a king. If you play the pagat to a trick and lose, you also pay 5 to each opponent and 5 into the pagat pot. Okay, so we're circling into the all-important last trick, and Lulu leads a king, trying to win the last trick, but we both had trumps, Michael and I. Lulu lost that king. Now the reason Lulu attempted it is that if you win the last trick with a king, you get 40 points from each opponent and the contents of the king pot. So that's pretty lucrative. Similarly, If you can win the last trick with the Pagat, the one of trumps, you will also receive 45 points from each opponent and the contents of the Pagat pot. Winning the last trick with any other card is still good because you will get 20 points from each opponent. However, for Lulu, this was quite expensive because if you try to take an Ultimo, try to win the last trick with a king or the Pagat and you lose, you pay 40 to each opponent and you have to double whatever amount is currently in the king pot. If you play the Pagat to the final trick and don't win with it, you will pay each of your opponents 45 points and double the contents of the Pagat pot. So you can see how the numbers added up there. The final piece of the puzzle for scoring is the card points. Like most tarot games, the Pagat, Mondo and Fool are worth 4 points each, the Kings are worth 4 points each, the Queens are worth 3 points each, the Knights are worth 2 points each, and the Jacks are worth 1 point each. The rest of the cards aren't worth anything, but you get 1 point per trick taken and 1 point for the scat. It counts as an extra trick for you if you are the dealer. Now, if you add up all the points like that, the full deck is worth 78 points, or a full hand is worth 78 points. Divide that 3 ways is 26 points each. Now, you work out how much you beat your amount of 26, you round that to the nearest 5, and you pay that amount to the new dealer. If you are under, or if you are over, the new dealer pays it to you. It actually just works out zero sum, so everyone works out. And the card points aren't worth a huge amount in this game. Really, it's all about winning the last trick. That's where all the big juicy bonuses are. Now, there is a bonus for winning every single trick. It almost never happens, but if it does, it's called tout, which is all in French. And each of the opponents will pay you 85 points and you will get the contents of both of the pots. Then there is also a thing you can do, happen slightly more often, which is when you take no tricks at all. This is called nolo, and for this, the opponents will pay you 25 points each. So not as much, but still lucrative. And that cancels out all other payments for last trick or ultimos. However, someone else getting tout will cancel out your nolo. Now, in theory, that's it. That's the whole game. This video will show you how to play. It may not show you how to play super well, but it's enough to get you going. I'll have a separate video that has a bit more of the strategy, how to play better, how to work out how to maximize your chances of winning the last trick with the Pagat or with a king, or to see when someone else is doing it and mess it up for them so they lose lots of points. There's a lot of strategy in this game, but it's actually a bit more simple structurally than a lot of other tarot and tarot games. You know, there's no bidding. Officially, there's no partners in it either. So in some of those regards, it's fairly straightforward, but it is very challenging to play well. Anyway, jump onto boardgamearena.com and you can try it out with your friends. If you get onto the Discord, the traditional card games Discord, and connect with us in there, we can organize some sample games to play with you as well. Okay, that's all for now. Enjoy.